Fine motor skills are activities involving small muscles in your hands. So why are they so important for young children? Fine motor skills allow young children to rake in, grasp, and move objects. Ultimately, they will learn to use writing instruments and tools, and in the end, learn to write. So fine motor skills are kind of like a workout for their hands, all those tiny muscles around their hands. Also, fine motor skills encourage exploration, which I think is great for self-confidence and esteem, and hand-eye coordination, especially bilateral tasks using two hands at the same time. So although we've talked a lot about fine motor skills in these videos, I thought I would go through a few of my favorite fine motor skill activities at home, simply because these are items that I had lying around my house and you might too. So, where shall I start? One of our old favorites is transferring, and so if you happen to have some tongs, either large or small, you can help children transfer the large objects, ultimately the smaller ones, into two containers. So that's always a good one. In thinking about stuff I had lying around the house, you might have an ice cube tray where you can do that same activity. So you can sort by shape or color. For younger children, you can use softer objects, which makes it a little bit simpler. Some more sorting here. I went over this one last time, or a couple of videos ago, that my daughter made with bottle caps and sorting by color using pom-poms. Clothespins are great for a pincer grasp, which is an important, these muscles are important to develop. And so you might use some objects you have lying around the house and also use your clothespin if you have one. Clothespins can be used to, if you don't have any tongs, they can be used as tongs actually as well for soft objects. This is kind of a hard one here. I made this spider web. Actually, I didn't have any spiders, so there are frogs in there, but anyway. For older children, it's a really great activity for them to try to get the little plastic animal or whatever it is out of the spider web without actually hitting any of the yarn. So it's more difficult than it looks, believe it or not. So that's one thing you might be able to do. Well, actually my son really always loved padlocks. And so I happen to have a couple padlocks lying around the house. This is great fine motor skill. It's really interesting for kids too, especially because this is an adult object. And with that in mind, he's actually locked a couple things and then lost the key, so you want to be a little bit careful. But if you have a variety of locks, you can have the keys in them at first, and then later put the keys in another pile and see if they can match the key to the padlock. I always love working with Play-Doh, and if you have some Play-Doh around the house, you can also check out my last video on cooking has a Play-Doh recipe. But just remembering that Play-Doh is not some sacred thing. You can hide objects in there, just like Legos or beads. You can also add different objects, whatever you have lying around the house, to make a really neat creation. If you happen to have pipe cleaners, they're pretty versatile in terms of early childhood activities. One of my favorites is to ask a child to put beads or even straw pieces onto pipe cleaners. The best bet is to really, at least at first, at the end, put a little knot so that kids don't get frustrated as they do all this work lacing and then it kind of just falls off the other side. So you want to be careful of that. So you can lace beads, broken up straws, whatever you have that has a hole in it, even buttons if that's the case. An Old Spice container is a great way to get kids to use their pincer grasp and also other fine motor skills and hand-eye coordination in putting long, thin objects inside this grating here. For younger kids, this side. Anything you have lying around the house, again, like I said, this is a Q-tip. Speaking of anything lying around the house, so I did find some beads, under the radiator, and I also had some of these floral beads and just pieces of games that are long gone. You find all the little pieces. These might be great for working with those fine motor skills. So it's good to hang on to those if you have them. Back on the pipe cleaners, using pipe cleaners and a strainer. In a previous video, I had my daughter doing a floral arrangement with fake flowers. On this side, you can also have kids use the pipe cleaners in this way. I personally love, and I meant to mention earlier too, I recycled egg cartons are a great way to sort items and encourage fine motor skills. So right here I have just some Legos sorted by color that you can, again, either choose to use tongs or not in sorting them. So back in the weaving. I happen to have this metal frame that I used as a weaving base, but you don't necessarily have to have this, so it's not as big of a deal if you choose to weave using some cardboard, which I just put notches on the end, and then took string pretty taut and wrapped it around each time, so even on the back. And then asked my young child to use ribbon or whatever I had lying around the house, including things like sticks or beads, on pipe cleaners, and move them through and get them weaving into this, and it really makes for a nice project. If you don't have cardboard, maybe you have this, which I found in my kitchen, which is a cooling rack, which I never use, but I put different ribbons through here, and again, this is a great exercise for young children and their fine motor skills. It's a little tricky too. Okay, oh, and this are some lacing. There's really a lot of variety of different ways to lace, and young children probably at nursery school have really cool toys for lacing, but you might not at home. But a piece of cardboard and an old shoelace will definitely work for lacing if you want it. So in thinking about numerals and letters. In Montessori, this is a sandpaper letter where we have texture. Getting children to really follow that, the way that numbers and letters are formed, like that. You can do that at home in a different way. If you have some letters that you want children to trace, even if you don't have a laminator, they can trace this, or they can use little stickers that I happen to find lying about and go all the way around the letter. If letters are they're not ready for those, or they haven't expressed any interest in letters and numbers, just following a really cool design by putting these stickers all along or tracing them, especially when you have that on a wall, it's really great for them to develop that skill. Speaking of skills, cutting with some child-safe scissors. You can have children cut different shapes. They don't have to cut letters, that kind of thing, but this is fun for them and pretty rewarding. If you do have a hole punch, you can set up a hole punch pattern here and have the children go through and hole punch, using these muscles. And then at the end, you have a pretty cool art supply project, something to make art with. If you don't have stencils, that's okay, but stencils are really great for getting kids to use a tool like a crayon or a marker and stay within the lines. If you don't have any, you can easily make simple shapes out of cardboard. So when you start to think about it, everything begins to look like fine motor skill play in your home. This is one of my kids' favorites. Basically, you take some plastic animals that you might have lying around the house in a tub and some dish soap and water, and then an old toothbrush or a toothbrush that you have, and you can ask the child to really clean their toy, which is fun for them and gets them to really manipulate this toothbrush in an interesting way. Just give them a good wash all over. Not that that's going to help this particular animal because it looks like this dinosaur was chewed by my dog, but so here's another one. After this happens and they're completed, they can wash them off and dry them using their own little towel. So those are some of the activities that I wanted to share with you today. Thanks for joining us. If you are interested in other fine motor skill play, you'll find it kind of peppered through all of my activities videos that have preceded this, so 1 through 7. Feel free to check up on our YouTube channel and our Educa user group for updates and other ideas. Thanks so much.